Hello, Watch Chit Chat here, with your reminder that life is short. Buy the watch. Today we're going to talk about high horology and this hobby of ours and watch collecting. Now, the cool thing about watch collecting is that you do get to meet like-minded people along the way. And today I was speaking to a fellow watch enthusiast via text, shout out to Working Man Lifestyle, who is looking at buying into high horology. So I thought we'd start by talking about what high horology actually is. So in my readings, the definitions of high horology are considered that there's history and legacy in the brand or innovation for newer brands. There are in-house movements with complications such as perpetual calendars and tourbillons. There's a high level of finishing and elevates the timepieces to much higher standards. There's an artistry behind the watchmaking, such as guilloche, enameling, engraving. And then there's the craftsmanship and quality, just elevates it to the absolute top tier of watchmaking. So we might start with these four timepieces and the Rolex in particular. So it's interesting because when you look at the Rolex, it ticks most of the boxes. Rolex has a great history and legacy. It's making its in-house movements. The quality is fairly good. However, where it falls short of being classified as high horology is really in the Rolex movements, in that there's really no complications, albeit there is a complication here in terms of the chronograph, but Rolex really aren't known for their complications. And whilst the finishing is good, there's not a great deal of high quality craftsmanship that goes into these timepieces. So that's what makes Rolex not a high horology piece. Now we look at the JLC. Now the JLC has a history in their brand. They are very innovative in their movements. You can see that there's guilloche and beveling here, so the craftsmanship's there. However, this piece in particular doesn't really have a great level of complication to it. So I would say that this piece, while JLC does tick the boxes, this piece in particular doesn't tick the boxes. And it's really weird. You'll see that it's a bit contradictory in the other pieces. I think the key is that the finishing and the ability of the brand to be able to produce complications has a really large part to play. So whilst this piece doesn't meet the criteria, there are other reverses that do. In fact, I recently got to see a reverso tourbillon, and that would be defined as high horology. The finishes on that reverso are just a touch greater than this one, this duo face, and the complications clearly are much higher as well. Other JLCs that I saw recently, the JLC Shooting Star, that had a higher level of finish and some gem setting as well, so it ticked the artistry component as well as the finishing and the movements and the complications. The craftsmanship and quality were also very high. Likewise for the Duomet, as well as what I saw as a Constellation, I believe it was. So now we look at the overseas, which is interesting because it's quite a modern watch, but the brand itself is over 270 years old. You can see the high quality and lacquer finishes of that dial, but also, whilst it's a steel watch, when you put this on the wrist, you can really feel the difference in finishing. Now, the movement doesn't have a great complication. However, the quality really elevates it with all the hand-assembled finishes and parts. Now, what I would say is that whilst this doesn't have a complication, this is a date and time only, this does come with the dual time and the chronograph, which is interesting because despite that being not overly complex, as the Rolex does have a chronograph as well, I think the fact that the brand is well known for complications and that this has a Geneva seal, that the other categories for this particular watch helps it push over the line to that high horology space. And likewise, if you look at the Vacheron Constantin Historics American 1921, this has all the hallmarks of high horology except no complication. Now, it's quite interesting. It feels almost like these watches, as long as they excel in the other categories, that not just brand name alone, but the brand name being known to be able to have high complications really does assist in putting it into that high horology category. And this watch does have the Geneva seal too. So it's just a mark of the quality, the high finish, and it is really high finished. The craftsmanship is fantastic. It's an in-house movement. There is artistry in the movement as well, and there's legacy behind the brand. So the only thing this watch is missing is the complication. So I hope that helped, although it is still can be a bit confusing. But the things I would say about high horology is that you just got to be a bit careful when you're getting into it, because once you get to this level, it does make it a bit hard to go back. And they aren't cheap. Well, they're not inexpensive, I should say, but you are paying for a different value proposition here. It's not the right thing to think about buying a watch because of the time that goes into it. This is more about the skill and craftsmanship behind it. And so the craftsmen that build these watches, they didn't learn that overnight. So it's through years and years of toil and mastery that gets them to this point. The dangerous thing about these things is that once you've gotten to this level, it does make it difficult to go back. And as pretentious as that sounds, I do still enjoy entry-level watches. So as pretentious as that sounds, try not to let you be that person. I enjoy high-level watches and entry-level watches and micro brands. I think the key here is that, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but my high horology pieces would be considered entry-level high horology pieces. So I haven't lost my marbles just quite yet. The other thing I would say is that these definitely are not investment pieces. I think what you'll find that is you just have to be cautious if you're looking at trading into watches and trading up in quality of watches. The reason being is that watches aren't, they're an asset class, I guess, but they're not really an investment. And as liquid as they are, you are talking about a small pool of buyers who will buy watches. And as you enter high horology, that pool becomes even smaller. So you'll find that these pieces do sit for longer when you buy them from boutiques, but also they do sit for longer if you're trying to move them on as well. So just think of these high horology pieces as you're playing for keeps. If you're going to buy the watch, you're not buying it as an investment or to make money. You're basically buying them because you enjoy and appreciate the artistry and craftsmanship, and they're going to be a part of your collection for the long haul. So there you have it. Quick fire lesson in high horology. Hopefully that helped and didn't cause more confusion. So if you like the content, please click like and subscribe. And remember, life is short. Buy the watch.